Today's podcast is supported by David Smith of Edward Jones. Are you happy with your financial strategy? Or maybe like to see what other opportunities are out there? Well, give David a call at 469-372-1587. That's 469-372-1587. David is only concerned about one person, that's you and your financial health. So check him out, David Smith, Edward Jones, 469-372-1587. Hey everybody, it's the Trout, and welcome to another episode of The Trout Show. Thanks so much for watching today. Let me ask you a quick question. What if you were a drummer in a rock blues band that everywhere you play, the crowds are huge, the shows are sold out, you do over 600 shows with one of the most famous rock blues artists that are out there, you even played to a sold-out Royal Albert Hall. Video was made of that show, and thousands of people watched it. Sounds like a dream come true, doesn't it? Well, it would be for most musicians. And it was for Bogie Bowles, the drummer for Joe Bonamassa for over 5.5 years, and also for Kenny Wayne Shepherd. Bogie, after 5.5 years of performing with Joe, said, "I need more in my life." And that's what this video is about. It's a story about Bogie, how he gave up that career to become a clinical therapist to help people. Imagine that. Going down the road of becoming and staying famous and the adulation of crowds to help people overcome their addictions. It's a great story, and it's very insightful. And I have to be honest with you, it's one of the best interviews I've ever done because Bogie was a great interview, but also he has a very intriguing story. So I hope you sit down and watch this episode because it's got a lot of information about the business of being in a band that travels all over the world and how Bogie continues to grow and help people become better human beings. It's a touching story. I think you'll like it. So up next, Bogie Bowles. I gave up becoming a rock musician to help humanity. That's next on The Trout Show. All right, so let's start with something simple. Your name. Where did that come from?
The patented joke is my dad was a shitty golfer, right? It's like, that's the quick kind of like, let's get past that stuff. But actually, so my full name is Hargrove. And so it's Hargrove Bowles, and I'm the fourth. I didn't have a middle name.
And where were you born? Where were you born?
I was born in South Carolina.
I knew it had to be a southern state.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody in Chicago is named Hargrove, and they're not the third or the fourth. No, they ain't having that.
But anyway, so when my great grandfather was born, the Methodist bishop was in town, and his name was Vivian Hargrove. And when he turned 18, my great grandfather walked to City Hall and promptly dropped Vivian. So he was Vivian Hargrove Bowles, and then
Smart
he became
idea.
Hargrove Bowles. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the last three of us had nicknames. My grandfather, he was the water boy on like a high school football team.
Really?
And the coach could never remember his name. I mean, who remembers the water boy, right?
That's true.
And so he said, my grandfather used to always say, Hargrove's kind of a mouthful. And so he said, the coach would always be like, get the skipper to do it. And he became Skipper Bowles. And so he was that. My dad then adopted that later in his life. He was also called Skipper. But when I was born, they knew I wasn't going to go by Hargrove, and they gave me Bogie. That was the one over par. And who thought? What's interesting when you think about it. What did you end up doing in with your life? It fits perfectly with when you're a musician, right? I mean, come on. How many people change their names? Yeah. And who was I reading about the other day? And I thought, wow, that's a name close to his real name. It's like, well, Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise's name is like, I don't remember what it was. It's like, it ain't even close. It's like, But so here you go. Bogie won. Yeah, he was almost par, but not quite. So yeah, exactly. And thank God he wasn't good enough to make me birdie.
So when did you start? Did you start on the drums, or you started on something else when you were a kid?
I started on drums.
banging on a piano, and there's pictures of me with a toy guitar and stuff. But those weren't pursuits; those were more like aggravations from my parents. But no, I started on drums. It was probably about fifth grade when I really wanted to start playing, and MTV had really just exploded.
Yeah.
This would have been 82, 83.
Yeah.
And I just remember watching the music when it had M on it, when MTV had music
Well,
on
it
it.
had music. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Which they don't have anymore.
yeah,
Yeah.
kids, it started as music television, you know. But so when that was going on, I just watched all those videos, and the drummers always looked A, like they were having the most fun, and B,
Yeah.
like they were the coolest dudes. And I mean, it was Rick Allen, it was Jeff Porcaro,
Oh yeah.
it was those guys,
Yeah.
Frank Beard,
Oh yeah.
that kind of
Frank.
stuff. And this is the kind of what I consider the second, career of ZZ Top. This was, fuzzy guitars and spins and cars and shit.
Yeah. And were you living in the Carolinas at that time, or
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
Yeah.
I lived in Greenville, and I started with a band there. Some friends of mine, and we're all playing, the metal hits of the day. This is in
Yeah.
like 80, 85, 86, 87, and we had a ball, and we really bonded. And I look at that, and it's like these are three guys that I love dearly, even to this day. I
Mhm.
mean, as you do as teenagers, you have your differences. I mean,
Oh
one of
yeah.
them and I got in a fight, and he beat the shit out of me. It's like, it's like, I went to school like 2 days later, still with a black eye and a
Black eye.
broken hand. Yeah, you know. But he's still one of my best friends to this day. And
Yeah.
like his father passed, and when my father passed, we were at the funerals for each. We're there for each other.
Yeah.
When I went to treatment, he sent me letters. I mean, all of those things. But the formative part of being in a band was so huge for me. Is just as far as like I think my own personal growth, finding purpose, feeling valued, all of that stuff. And so that was really big. I just I love those guys dearly, and I
But
think a
I
couple
tell
of them.
people this all the time. Until you get on stage, I just had this conversation with somebody the other day. Shot him some
Uh-huh,
new music I was recording. He's a drummer, not professionally. And I
uh-huh,
said, unless you're on stage, I said, there's nothing better than being on stage and you're melting with the crowd.
yeah,
And I said, what's even better if it's one of your songs you wrote and they're going crazy over it. It don't get any better than that.
no, that's for
And I
sure.
said, the worst part about playing for anybody really is it's short. You literally get up there, you're all hyped up. And I'm the ones you played, obviously, you're going to some 12,000 or 10,000 people, whatever it is. And you're ready. And then all of a sudden it's like the last song already. I mean,
Yeah,
it goes by so fast.
yeah. I get asked every now and then. It's like, do you miss it? And I'm like, I miss that.
Oh yeah. You
I
can't replace that.
I miss the show. I miss the connection. I mean, the musician hang that's an entity unto itself.
Yes, sir.
We're weird, we're quirky. Our humor really sits best with other musicians. It's
Yes.
that kind of thing.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
but I miss that, and I miss seeing new towns and things like that. But man, I don't miss the rest of it. I don't miss the other 20 hours of the day.
It all sounds good. It's all great. And it's like, oh man, look at this video I'm in here and all this stuff. But then it's like you said, the other 20 hours, you're on the road, you got to get here, you got to go there,
Yeah,
and you pack your shit up and you got to unpack it here. I don't care how many roadies you do, you still have shit to do. You
yeah.
get in a hotel, you stay in a bus, or whatever, however you get there. If you're really big, you get in a plane, but you're never home.
No, and that's it. It's not the 20 hours of that life. I mean, the submarine bus rides that you do, and it's not that is like such a tax. It's the being away,
Yeah.
and really what happened for me. I mean, we can kind of punch this in there, but I got in touch with the fact that I finally wanted a family,
Mhm.
and I didn't want to be the dad that was gone.
Yeah.
You know? But before that real kind of aha moment, I didn't want one because I knew I didn't want to be the dad that was gone, and I knew that I wanted music more than anything.
Yeah.
And after I had it in my life and as a profession for 20 years and had achieved, the level of success that I did, um, I said, okay, there's got to be more for me than being gone all the time and the bus stage hotel day to day. And the family thing kind of came in, and it was like, okay, well then what? And I think we talked about this too. But it was like, what can I do that's going to be supportive, where it's actually still going to be kind of an affair of the heart and of the soul that I'm
Yeah,
going to feel fulfilled in. And
sure.
therapy was that for me, and has been ever since.
When did you decide though? When was the time? So you start playing, you played with your buddies. What was the name of the band?
Enforcer.
Enforcer. Okay. Did you
Yeah.
all have the long hair and did you do the
Now remember, we're all like country club kids from Greenville, South
ah
Carolina that
okay,
want
so
to be
that
head,
didn't happen.
but
No.
no, but that want to be that want to be headbangers, right?
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so we've got the total like country club mullets.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot
It's
about
like
that.
everything looks like total like like John Edwards comb over kind of stuff, and then it's like and the mud flap. It just cracks me up.
When was the time though that you knew that you went from playing with your buddies to playing with people like Kenny Wayne and Joe? I mean, what was the first big act that you went and I assume you tried out for and they said you're in.
Um, so I played through high school with those guys. I got shipped off to a boarding school my 10th grade year because, I think my parents were just kind of over the dynamics and stuff and all
Yeah.
that. And, I mean,
Yeah.
and my drug use was starting to escalate. They didn't really know at the time.
Yeah.
Um, but, so the attitude was going south. The grades were going south. We've got to get them into college and get them a promising future. So we'll send them to this school that's great for academics. Um, I ended up getting an advanced degree in drug use at that school. you know,
Did you
put a
get a
bunch of
certificate? Do you get a diploma for that?
dude, put a bunch of kids in the middle of nowhere with some of their parents' money, and like, what do you think is going to happen if there's any kind of shenanigans? It's like
Yeah.
it goes
Yeah.
deep, and I don't blame that on the school.
No, no,
It's a
no. I
great
understand
institution,
that. Yeah.
and it really did. It upped my academic game. I got into the colleges that I applied to that I wanted, and everything. So it did its purpose. But there was an addict in me that was just ready to blossom that found its calling there too.
Yeah.
Um, so I played with one friend of mine was there for first year I was there, and we just played, just the two of us. He played guitar, and he got me into Zeppelin and Rush and all that stuff. And so a little bit further away from the Judas Priest and Iron Maiden catalog,
Yeah.
um, and all that. But so I did that for 2 years. Then I went home for my senior year because I copped to it with my folks. I said, "Look, I'm doing drugs, and I don't think I can stay clean here." Now
Wow.
the ulterior motive was that I want to be home and play in my band again, right?
Wow.
And so I did, and then I went home, but and I stayed off the drugs for probably 4 months, I think. But I kept drinking like a fish.
Mm.
Got to have something, and being 17, I'm not equipped to put it all down. But I went to Berkeley College of Music that summer of '89,
Which one did you
and
go to?
the performance the 5-week performance program, and it was great. I mean, being in Boston in the big city and like being
I was going
around
to say, so
players.
you went to Boston, yeah, because they
Yeah,
got the one.
Berkeley. Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
um,
okay.
yeah, and players of that caliber, and like just and the focus and the intensity, and it was like you could be that good.
Mm.
And there was a drummer there, a teacher named Larry Finn, and he's still there, and he's an amazing player. And he made a big impression on me with just like, hey, you know, you can do the metal thing pretty well. Let's look at what you can't do. And he got me much more into like groove and shuffles and feel and that kind of stuff. Just in that 5 weeks, he planted some great seeds. And, that was kind of off and running after that. But I went home. I took lessons at a fine arts center for my senior year. That taught me a little bit more about the reading thing and, got me sort of, again, continued to practice right. A great teacher, Gary Robinson. Love him to this day. Um, but then I went to Carolina. I went to UNC in Chapel Hill, and
Right.
after and it was totally like I love the Tar Heels. I'm that guy, and my family had huge legacy there and stuff. But it was really about the guy that I had played with at boarding school for that year. His best friend went there and wanted to be in a band with me,
Mm.
And I went, well, I got to go do that.
Yeah.
So Carolina was the vehicle for my music, you know.
Okay.
Now it was also the vehicle for my addiction, totally just hammering me. Got there, and 3 months later was politely asked to leave.
Politely. I like
Yeah, I was. He was, polite with boundaries, but like you
Hey,
can't.
y'all, can you come in here and sing me Bogie? I need to tell you something.
It's like, kid, you got a problem, and you got to go home and take care of the problem. You can't stay.
Yeah.
And I was just like, all the self-loathing and everything kicked in. But went home, went to treatment, got sober, been sober ever since. And so that really determined the trajectory, because I knew if I'm going to be sober, then I have to do what means something to me. I can't bullshit.
Yeah.
And so it was music, and it had always been that. I mean, me and the guitarist for Enforcer, this guy Tommy Creech, we used to joke about it. We watched Rat had a video called Rat the Video. Go figure. But they had this video, and it was like, we watched that, and it was all about the LA metal scene and the glam movement and all that, and them coming of age and that and getting big. And we watched that in 8th grade and went, we got to move to LA and make it big.
Oh, yeah.
It's like at 14,
Yeah.
But what oddly enough ended up happening was that's what I did. I ended up, I got sober. I went back to Carolina, played in a band there with the guy that I wanted to. His name is Martin.
Right.
And Martin and I, found 2 other guys that, again, we're all still close to this day. And so we toured up and down the East Coast, all the clubs, played a ton of frat parties, all that kind of stuff, but doing original stuff mostly.
Oh, cool.
And had a great time with it. But again, sort of that to all things, there was a season. And after 7 years of it, it was like, okay, I think there's more than this, and we were in debt, from a bad vehicle purchase. I mean, it's like the curse of all local bands. You invest in yourself and it goes to shit.
Yeah.
But we made a couple of records. We never really got over the hump either of like, when do we start drawing the big crowds? We never got to, we could draw a good crowd, but not a big thing. And that was something we had to contend with the whole time, because we played original music and our stuff was a little left of center and all that. But
And everybody wanted covers. It's like they do now.
Yeah. And I mean, the people.
Now it's all tribute. Give me a tribute band. But it's just, you're still doing covers.
Totally. And the people that loved us, and they're our friends, and it's so great. And every now and then we get whispers of like, when are y'all going to do like just that one-off reunion show? And I'm like, that'd be interesting. See if I can even still pull it off. So when that ran its course, I really started feeling like I needed more from my playing. I needed to elevate my game. And Jeff Porcaro was one of my heroes for a long, long time. I wanted more of what he had. What better place to go and get it than from his dad in LA, who taught at LA Music Academy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so I went and studied there with Joe Porcaro and sorry.
I understand.
Well, and Ralph Humphrey, who just passed away a couple months ago. And Ralph changed everything for me, technically speaking. Just the way I hit the drum, the relaxed approach to play, still having a big sound with a lot of volume, but not overworking. And I mean, every teacher there touched me in some way on a very deep level as a musician.
Did you get to meet Jeff? Did you ever talk to him? Did you see him?
He passed away in '92, so by the time I went,
he was already gone
for 5 years.
But you know what? His legacy with one song. Everybody knows that. Everybody, if a drummer doesn't know how to play Rosanna Manning, that was the best groove song. I mean, as soon as you hear it, you're like, I know what that is. Yeah.
Well, not only that, I mean, his catalog is so vast.
Yeah, he played, him and his brother played all the time. I mean, his brother's still playing, but
I mean, but the Boz Skaggs stuff, I mean, all of this, right? I mean, I was in a hotel room. I can tell you where I was in Atlanta doing like Knockdown Smilin' was the band out of Chapel Hill. We were down there doing a recording session, our first one, big studio, and we were in the Knights Inn hotel.
Oh my gosh, I even know what they are. Yeah.
Right. Just shithole. Anyway, so we're in there, and we're watching CNN and it comes on that Jeff has died, and I wasn't as steeped in him as I was or as I am, but I just went, that's a huge loss.
Yeah.
I knew how important to the musical community it was, and like just everything. And it was really after that I started kind of going, just how big a loss is it? And I started researching and finding different things he played on. And,
Yeah, he was a
you know,
huge studio guy. Yeah, he played.
I mean,
And you know, the sad thing about it, people like that, it really wasn't until they became famous. And that was when they had Toto 4 was right around that same
yeah,
time in the 80s. But of course, that was
yeah,
after that. But that's when I started reading about him. And I started like, he played where? I mean, you just started seeing where and
yeah,
because as you know, studio people don't, they may show up on the liner notes or something, but
yeah,
and then and do you figure, okay, as soon as I read that, I went, well, no wonder they're good. I mean,
yeah,
you don't do a studio musician and you suck. They hire you
right.
because you're good.
Because you're the best,
Well,
you
and the
know.
same thing happened to me because when I saw Jimi Hendrix 3 months before he died.
Yeah,
So
wow,
right before he died, and so when he died, I went to my best friend who was sat with me next to him, and the tickets were $6 for the best ticket in his house. He says, "I knew this was going to happen." It was
yeah.
just one of those things. You're like, God dang it,
You
dude!
literally saw a shooting star.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Yeah,
And
wow.
and so after that, so you're playing. Oh, so who did you run into? Oh, you were in. Okay, you saw when
Yeah, yeah,
Jeff passed away at Atlanta. Okay,
yeah,
at the Night's
yeah.
End.
But that really inspired me, and so I started researching all this stuff. And I remembered seeing his name. I mean, obviously, I saw him on the videos with Toto,
Yeah.
early MTV and stuff. But the first time I saw his name on a liner note was "Decade of Steely Dan" had FM, and he played on that track.
Oh, I
And
didn't
I
know
remember,
that.
yeah, and I remember reading that at boarding school and be like, "Who's that?" And I think somebody said, "I think that's Toto." I was like, "Oh wow, he plays in Steely Dan too. You can do that." um, because John
That's
Bonham and Neil
funny.
Peart never played with anybody else.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so that was a real inspiration. So that's what moved me to go to LA Music Academy at the time. Now it's LA College of Music. But yeah, man, I mean, it's
Who
so I go.
was so? Where was the first big name that you joined?
I I kicked around LA for about 5 years.
Okay.
Was in an original project there, a couple of them actually. Did some recordings that are to this day some of the favorite stuff I've ever played on.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, Jeff Weitzman was a guy, and he just called me. Kind of, there's a musician's contact service, and he was kind of like a darker Tom Petty kind of vibe.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and so he had me come in and record on his thing. Now, the first big gig that I had was a dude named Stevie Salas, and Stevie had played with Rod Stewart in the late '80s, and had his own career. And then right when I was graduating from LA Music Academy, he was auditioning people to go for a tour in Europe. And one of my teachers, and now a very dear friend of mine, Mark Schulman, who also changed tons of stuff about my playing, and this is a major lesson moment here. But he recommended me for audition, and so I went to Stevie and I got the gig.
Mm.
And then I proceeded to just get my ass kicked for like the next 6 weeks. It was like 3 weeks of rehearsals, 3 weeks in the tour,
Oh yeah.
and and I mean, well, let's call it what it was. I had skills. I had the raw material, but I wasn't as good as I wanted to be at that moment, and I wasn't as good as I thought I was. I thought I was there. Stevie had been there and done that, and he saw the raw material and he saw all of that stuff, and he wanted me to have it, but I didn't have it yet. And he kind of kicked my ass for 3 weeks, and it was like, hey, look, this doesn't feel right. That's not right. What's going on with this? All that kind of
Mm.
stuff.
Mm.
And it was really, really hard for me because, part of it was I thought I was there, and part of it was I wasn't responding to his approach to criticism very well either.
Right.
And that was my own internal stuff,
Sure.
right? Getting activated. I say that as a therapist. But I went home from that tour so beat up, just almost broken, really. Confidence was
Mm.
shot because I just felt like I couldn't do or play anything right. And my dream, that was the overseas tour. That was and then I went to shit. And I called Mark Schulman and I said, dude, I want a lesson, you know? And he goes, yeah, you sound kind of beat up. And I'm like, yeah, it didn't go very well. And I went to Mark and I told him everything. And he goes, okay. He goes, yeah, he goes, you know, I've played with Stevie. I understand he's real specific in what he needs. And, you know, the delivery of information may not be the most gracious,
Right.
you know, but whatever, you know, that's kind of irrelevant. It was really about what was going on with me.
Yeah.
And so Mark said, hey, just sit down and play. And so I played. And after about 45 seconds, he waved me off, stop. He goes, first off, man, you play great. So to hell with all this other stuff. And I really needed to hear that in the moment.
Yeah. I
And
understand.
he said, that said, there are some things in your playing that you can clean up that are going to make a huge difference. He said, and it may have been that stuff that Stevie heard, but he couldn't tell you what it was because nobody's going to be able to tell you that but another drummer. He goes, but like, you iron this stuff out, it's going to feel just that much better, just that much deeper. And that way, he goes, you'll go on an audition, and if you don't get this together, you'll go in, you'll play great, it'll feel really good. But the
Yeah.
next guy that comes in that has this together, his will feel that much intangibly better, and they'll pick him for the gig. So this may be the difference between you getting a gig and not getting a gig.
Hmm.
And that
That's
rang
interesting.
my bell. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, well, we're in. What do we do? And, you know, we came up with like, I think 3 exercises that I did. I mean, up, down, sideways, for the next 6 months. And it was
Wow.
just getting my left hand ghost notes in place, like always consistent with whatever feel I was playing. My bass drum spacing, always consistent. And just like in real overall awareness of like time, feel, and consistency. I did that. Jeff Weitzman calls. I go play for Jeff. I'm in the studio. I'm relaxed. I hear myself play back, and I'm like, I sound the way I always wanted to sound.
That's cool.
There it is. I sound like a pro. I sound like one of the people I admired,
Yeah.
you know? And what a moment that was. And it really started from my experience with Stevie and then Mark helping me shift that into like that whole like, oh, woe is me or shit to like, let's take action on this and grow.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful to both of them for that to this day.
Well, it just
But
goes
that's
proves you know, there's 2 things. You had the talent. You got the talent given to you. But then you have to, as I tell people all the time, especially young people, if you get it, and you get blessed with it, you still have to use it to get better.
yeah,
And even though you may have it, if you don't work at it and make yourself better, because the one thing about music that's always interesting to me is you can always get better. You know, you can never play. I mean, yeah, there are great players out there, but why do great football players, quarterbacks, still have somebody telling them how to do it better, or golfers and all that stuff? Musicians are no different.
yeah.
And I think the hardest thing for us, because our egos are so touchy, is being able
We
to,
are a sensitive lot.
I know we're sensitive. You can tell us anything you want, but you're full of shit if I don't agree with you. But there's people that have to be, and you obviously respected these gentlemen a lot, but you got to have people around you that will tell you the truth.
You really do. And if you don't, you're destined, in my opinion, for one of 2 things. Either a life of mediocrity, right? Of unfulfilled potential, really. Or like to be some sort of like really kind of twisted narcissist,
Yeah.
you know? Because you just got people yesing you all the time. It's like you start to believe your own bullshit.
Well, and you know, oh man, I've been around people like that. They have their sycophants
So
with them.
say
and
we
it's-
all, you know?
I mean, you're sitting there. Well, I mean, look at the people you toured with. Okay.
Yeah.
I always go back to Eric Clapton. How many people does he need to hear he's good? I mean, I mean, you know, I ran into Eric Johnson recently
Man.
here at the International Guitar Festival.
Yeah.
And I'm always cognizant of the fact that I don't want to be a fanboy. You know,
Yeah.
I can't do it. I have to act like,
Right.
okay. So he was
See,
standing
I'm the opposite. I'm the opposite. I don't care. I'm like, dude, I love you. Let's do this.
Yeah, but you could pull it off. Probably I can't, you know. So he was standing after talking to a couple of guys. I just walked up and said, pleasure meeting you. Love your music. Good to see another Texas boy.
Yeah,
And I didn't even go like, can I get my picture with you? I don't do that,
yeah,
So, but does he need to be told? No,
right, right.
but what I always think about somebody like you is when I watch, and I know I never did ask you this. It's probably weird to get my email. Who is this guy and how did he find me and all this shit? It's like,
I mean, Rick, it was kind of, because it always comes out of left field. You're like, wait a minute, what?
yeah.
And all that. But I mean, it's happened a few times, and I'm grateful for it.
Well, you've had a great life. I mean, you're doing exactly what you want to do now, which is kind of cool, but which is really fulfilling for you because you have an addictive personality. I mean, that's obviously you do have that in my family too. But to me, when I see people of your ilk, so to speak, and playing at the level that you have played at, it's always harder to, it's what's the old saying? It's harder to stay at the top than get to the top.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine your former boss, Joe Bonamassa, sitting around going, well, what are we going to do now? I got another Grammy I sold another million. I mean, it's just, and I know they don't even think about it anymore. I'm sure they just go, I just want to put music out. That's it. And if you get
and that is Joe. He's, he is driven in the most beautiful way to just, I want to say execute, but that sells it so short. It's like to manifest and to realize what's in him,
Concerned about your financial health? And reach out to David Smith with Edward Jones. 469-372-1587. That's 469-372-1587. He can conduct business where you are. Get your financial health checkup with David Smith with Edward Jones. His number one concern is you. That's David Smith with Edward Jones. 469-372-1587.
Well, and the thing about watching him and I'm a blues guy, so all the great blues guys are almost all gone. Buddy Guy's 85 now or something like that. This is his last tour. He said it is. I'm sure he's going to quit. He lost BB several years ago, and you have new ones coming up. Joe's kind of in that vein.
Yeah.
But that people that like the blues, there's a niche there. Yeah. And when I talk about people that I speak with friends and I go, I'm going to interview so-and-so, and they may be really well known, they don't know who the hell I'm talking about. And it's like, and it doesn't bother me because I want to talk to them. I had a great conversation with Walter Trout back in January. And,
such a great guy.
Well, and he's like, he said, it was strange. Do I know you? Your name's Trout. I said, well, yeah, but he says, I'm on the Trout show and my name's, I go, yeah, whatever. So it was kind of weird. It's actually, his wife does his manager. When was the moment, I ask people this all the time at your level, when was the moment you were sitting there playing drums or getting ready to start a concert and you're going, well, I can't really believe I'm here. I mean, do you remember that moment? Do you remember when that happened to you? You were sitting down, and I mean, it had to happen sometime. You just go, I got to pinch myself. I can't believe I'm playing here.
Yeah, the kind of wow, check me out kind of moments. Yeah. A buddy of mine described it where he would just kind of look up at God and be like, wow, check me out. Like, how did we get here?
No, more like, thanks, dude.
Well, definitely that. And that was where, my friend.
No, I knew what you meant. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where Bob always kind of got you with it. But I mean, I have a handful that come to mind immediately. And one of them was with that first band, Enforcer.
Isn't that funny?
Just we played, we were in ninth grade, and we went into a studio, made our own demo tape, sold the demo tapes at school, took that money to rent the room at the Shriners Club to do the gig, right? And it was that first gig there. Everything was firing on all cylinders. We were on it. The preparation had paid off. The crowd was into it. We had a ball. And there was just magic in the air for that stuff. And that lit me up like Christmas tree. And so that was certainly one of them. And then there were, plenty of others. some with Knockdown Smile, like, all of them, honestly, with everybody I've played with, there have been those moments. With Kenny, anytime we played Blue on Black,
Oh
it was
yeah,
it was the first time I was playing a song with the artist that I had heard on the radio,
that's
and
got to
so
be
that was a
interesting.
real,
Yeah.
yeah, that was a, like, wow, how, what an honor, you
Oh
know.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, and then also, like, when I could get out of my own stuff, like, does this feel right? Is everything going right? And get into, like, how the song sounds, and, like, the fact that this guy's burning it down on guitar, you know, when I could get out of, like, my experience
Yeah.
and making sure that my stuff was adding the right stuff, when I could get out of that and really plug into the whole, those are magical pinch me moments, because you really do feel the magnitude of it. You're like, whoa, this is a real force. And when we would do Voodoo Child with Kenny, I mean, that was always his set closer, and it was like, you got to be kidding me, man. That's crazy cool stuff that he
Yeah.
pulls
Yeah,
off.
because that's a song that's basically guitar, and I mean it's all guitar, but it's got
Yeah,
such a groove in the back.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And with, of course, I got to see the guy that was I got to see Mitch play it, that was the last song he played.
yeah. I mean, dude,
Mitch was one of my favorite drummers. Him and
and I mean,
that Who wacko played with
there's certain guys that I'm like, I will probably never land on that planet. I will visit there and orbit it and try to soak it in. But, like, I'll never land where they came from. And Mitch is one, Stuart Copeland is one.
Oh yeah.
Guys like that I'm just like, wow. Moon was certainly one. And I'm just like, that's just, they're from another planet for me. It's not, I mean, I'm just more of like a straight backbeat, kind of guy I like to think of it like with finesse and taste.
Oh
Um,
man, I mean, look, I told you when I watched, um, my God, I can't remember the name of the song now. I've watched it 40,000 times with you playing with Anton.
uh,
My God.
oh,
Anyway,
Mountain Time
when
or
you're,
Happier Times, or when we do the dueling thing,
no, you were playing with Joe at the
Howard
Royal
Hall.
Albert Hall,
Uh-huh.
and it's called, oh, what? I just mentally, like, just all of a sudden again. Anyway, he's got a long solo at the end, and you guys change up, and I'm watching both of you because obviously two drummers is always weird.
Is it Just Got Paid?
No, that one I knew. I knew. No, it's
Okay.
it's about the girl, and he goes sees her, and he does this weird screaming thing. Oh my God, I can't remember. That terrible. I watched it a lot because and I know the chords, which you don't care. It's D G C G D. It's
Right,
like
right, right.
his leads over that because when I watch it, I go, okay,
I
he's
think
playing.
it's Mountain Time.
It's
I
Mountain
think
Time.
that's okay.
That's
Yeah.
Mountain Time. Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm watching you because to me, because I grew up seeing Allman Brothers play with two
Yeah.
drummers, I got to see them play with the two drummers and all that stuff. So it was always interesting to me when that originally came out. Didn't pay much attention to it. Of course, now that was before YouTube really hit. Now
Yeah.
you can just watch it over and over because it shows up on the thing.
Right.
But I'm watching both of you. And the one thing I wanted to ask you about this, and I don't want to dwell on this too much, but when you guys did something like that, and you'd probably already played a lot of shows by the time you obviously you hadn't played a lot of shows because it seemed
So,
to me that you guys were so freaking tight, the whole band.
yeah.
And my favorite part is to watch how you end the song.
Yeah.
Is how do you turn around? Some people turn around. And he just walks over to Anton and he's playing the lead part and he just kind of gives him one of these. And
Uh-huh.
Anton looks at you and you go, okay, we're ending it.
Yeah.
And that only comes from having to be able to, I mean,
Well, that
that comes from
honestly,
skill. You guys have to know what you're doing.
that's, yeah, for sure. But that's honestly Anton's gift. He's one of those kind of otherworldly dudes too.
Yeah.
He's so well versed in that supportive role. Which, I mean, how would you not be? You'd have to be to get the Letterman gig.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, so he's so well versed in that he can read it well. He can read the situation well and all that. And, you know, everybody kind of knew the core of us, Rick, Joe, Carmine, and I, had been really in it for 600 shows together at that point,
Wow. Damn.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
just beyond crazy, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
we had really been in it, um, and so the other guys that supported it, Anton had done a lot of the recordings, and so he knew it, and he knew that. And I was trying to cop his feel on the live stuff,
Yeah.
so that wasn't a hard gap to bridge for the two of us. Just listen to each other, stay out of the way, kind of rule number zero, don't be a dick, that
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, and you can't walk on each other because then it looks like you're
Exactly.
trying to show up each other. Yeah. You can't
Yeah,
walk on each
which
other.
yeah, that's the rule number zero thing. It's like,
Yeah.
come on, dude, let's serve the music. Don't play the drums, play the music.
Yeah.
Um, and the horn section that came in, and all wonderful people too, just great guys, a great hang. That feeds the energy on the stage, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, those moments are really like. So we rehearsed for a couple of days, and then we went and did 2 or 3 shows in the Netherlands at some festivals. Now, what nobody ever talks about, and I hope I don't get in deep shit for it, at one of those, in the song "Happier Times," Anton and I would trade fills,
Hmm.
and instead of actually it was in Just Got Paid, we would trade fills.
Oh yeah,
Um,
because I remember that because she's doing it da 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 da, and then you go da da da. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we would do that, and one of those shows in the Netherlands, he took it out and lost me and the band, you know, and then it train wrecked, and it was like, oh God.
Oh no.
And yeah, and we did 3 shows. The first one we kind of hung on, and then the second one it train wrecked, and then I said, okay, that's never going to happen again, and I wrote out fills for us, and I took it to him, and I said, I think this will speak well to what we're trying to do.
Oh, so
What do
you
you think?
that way you both would. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what do you think? And he said, yeah, that sounds great, cool. And so we synced it up, and then on that next night we nailed it, and it was like, yes, that's perfect. And then the next gig, then we rehearsed again one more time, and then we did the Albert Hall gig.
So where did you
And
rehearse? In a warehouse or something? How did you? I mean, you
yeah,
had to
there
find a
was
place to play.
um, Britannia Row, I think or they were the sound company. What was it? Jackson. It's that
Yeah. Yeah.
escapes me, but it was a rehearsal studio in London, and
Oh, so it
Kevin
was. Oh,
Shirley
it was
was
actual
there.
studio.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So Kevin Shirley was there, and kind of managing the ship that way that he does, and we were all kind of just trying to execute the vision. But we had synced up after the train wreck. We righted it, righted the ship and synced up. But and so that night, yeah, we had played. That was like our fourth show together, a few rehearsals. Um, but what the other thing is, like, usually when people do a DVD, you have like a 2 or 3 night stint, and you
Yeah.
shoot
Yeah. They
all
put
the
them
nights.
together. Yeah. They put the
Yeah.
best parts together. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the Albert Hall piece, we couldn't get a date there. Mark Knopfler canceled one day. We got that date,
Oh
so
wow.
everything was on the line. There was
You had
no
one day to
fixes.
do it. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was warts and all, man. And so here's a pinch me moment. So we're going on, and I mean, what is just the most hollowed ground to me?
Oh yeah.
All my heroes played there.
Oh, Eric Clapton still talks about it like that's the
Yeah,
place to be.
it is. I mean, but he is telling the absolute truth. And there are those nights when I hit the drum from the get go, and you go, everything feels great. This is going to be an experience. Okay. So that night we opened the show with Django um, and
That's
which is
right.
a extended guitar solo, right?
Yeah.
And um, and I come in with this fill, and then Anton comes in with a fill, and then I come in with the fill, and then we do fills together and bring it all in.
That's
And
right. That's right. I remember that. Yeah, because
and
that's the way the song begins. Da 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 da
yeah,
da 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 da
yeah,
da da. Because
yeah,
he starts out walking out on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now I remember.
right.
Yeah,
So when we hit that fill together and came into the groove,
yeah,
everything felt great under my hands. I knew it was that thing. And I was, you can see me, I've got a grin on my face the whole night.
You
Right? I mean,
smiled. Look, I've watched you. You smiled a
yeah.
lot
Yeah,
during
and
that.
because I love what I'm doing, I got past the angry drummer phase where I've got to be. I mean that that comes out every now and then when I'm trying to focus or like really just get it out.
Yeah.
But you know I smile when I play honestly because it opens me up and it opens up my awareness and my feeling and the pocket and the groove and everything. I got nothing to prove in that shit anymore.
No. Well,
I can be in it, and so that night I couldn't help but smile. One, because that's my approach, but two, because how do you not smile at a packed
oh my
blowout of
God.
a hall? You know,
I can't
and
remember what
and
song. I
everything's
look
hitting.
back, the camera pulls over to Joe. You're in the background, and Joe's doing something. He's singing or something. The smile comes on your face, and I'm going, "This guy's having a great time." I could
Oh
just,
man,
and it's like, and those are the moments that you probably, well, you'll never forget them. I don't care if you're
no,
90 years old, you'll still be telling them,
no,
going, people are like,
no.
"Who's Joe Bonamassa, Grandpa?"
They'll be like, "We'll always have Albert Hall."
So after that gig, which you said was, when was that?
That was
2010?
May 4th of '09.
Oh, nine. Okay.
Yeah,
How long did you play after that?
another year and a half. Yeah,
So
at the end of 20.
you
Yeah,
went a lot of places.
yeah, yeah. We
And
we did we did a record a couple of months later. We did Black Rock in Santorini, Greece, and I got to be in there and watch Anton track in the studio. And I contributed, minimally bells and whistles, and that never really sat well with me. I wanted to be more of a contributor than that.
sure, I
Um,
understand.
I get the dynamic and the politics of it all, and that Kevin and Anton had a great relationship, and well, I think we talked about this in our conversation.
Yeah.
Time is money, and Anton knows how to read Kevin and get it fast
Yeah.
and at a very high level. And so I tried to learn from that, as I try to do with anything that chaps my ass, you know, um, and get better about, and bring different things to the live show that I could and everything,
But I
and
think,
I love that
one,
experience.
it was one of those things, and I'm sure this is what happened. Obviously I wasn't there, I wasn't a fly on the wall. So you go, who did you tell that it's over? Was it Joe you told? Or did you tell the
Yeah,
manager? So you went and told
no,
him.
no, it was no. I had way more of a personal relationship with Joe than
Yeah.
to not tell him.
Oh yeah, I'm sure, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah. But and I love Roy. His manager was always good to me. Um, which not many people can say about managers in the business.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. So and because Joe hired me, Roy did not hire me. So I met Joe with the Kenny tour. It was a year, and we did the last 2 months of that was opening for BB King, and Joe was the other opening act, and that's how we met.
Oh wow.
And we just bonded, hit it off, mutual respect, all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And then at the end of that, my tour ended with Kenny, and then Joe had some dates he wanted to finish out the year. Gave his guys the rest of the year off, asked me to do it, and I said, "Okay, cool, I'll be a placeholder. Everybody's looking for a gig."
Yeah.
And so I went into that thinking I'm just a placeholder, and it turns out I found out during that placeholding thing that he didn't give him the rest of the year off; he let him go.
Mm.
Um, and But there wasn't ever any mention about me coming on. And so I went, well, okay, if it's the placeholder gig, it's the placeholder gig,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And so I did that until the end of that year, and then it was mid January, early February, and I was in Target, and my phone rings, and it's Joe, and he goes, "Hey man, what are you doing the next few months?" And I went, "Nothing, looking for a gig,
Like,
um,
what do you say? What should I say here, Joe? Just tell me.
and I had an audition for a band lined up that would have been cool.
Yeah.
Um, but it was just an audition. It wasn't anything solid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I asked Joe for a minute to think about it, and he just said, "I'm going to Europe. I'd love you to go." He said, "Look, I didn't get you on this last thing." He did the blues cruise. He goes, "I didn't get you on that." He goes, "There was another guy that I wanted to try, and I tried him, and he's good, but I think you might be a better fit,
Still
for me."
about it's all about personality too.
Totally.
You could be great. I mean, you said it earlier. when you were talking about Enforcer, the night you were in the ninth grade playing,
Yeah.
there's a time, you know this, there are night, I mean, you're playing at that level. You have to
Yeah.
be good because people want, you have to be good. That's
Yeah.
just the end result. But there are nights that something happens magically within everybody. It's almost like you
Yeah.
have this sixth sense about what people are going to do. That
Totally.
doesn't happen very often. But when it
No.
does, you know
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
that
And
moment happens.
Joe just liked the way that I felt behind the drums and probably just hanging too. I mean, again, any jackass can show up and play. If
Yep.
you can't hang, you won't work.
Yep.
Um, but so I just said, give me a minute to see what I can come up with. Um, and I called my sponsor at the time, and
Mm.
recovery was a was Dallas Taylor, and
Ooh.
yeah, so Dallas was the original drummer in Crosby, Stills and Nash. For those
Yes,
of
I
you who
know who
don't
he
know,
is. Yeah, I
I
know.
know, I know you know,
Yeah.
and had helped so many people and was a wonderful friend and just hard for me. And I called Dallas and I said, okay, here's the situation. Here's what I'm looking at. And the more I'm telling Dallas about the gig, he's like, and I'm telling him, and I go, in Dallas, I'm sitting here wondering as I tell you why I'm not taking this. And Dallas goes, and Bogie, I'm wondering the same thing.
Mm.
And so that was it. And a few months turned into 5 years.
So when you walk in, you say, okay, I'm leaving. And it's like my last band that broke up. Was it 3 years ago now? And my wife says, are you hurt? Are you hurt? And I go, it's a band. I said, and some of them got together with other people. And I said, it's okay.
Yeah.
But you move on. Everybody moves on. That's just the way it
Right.
is. But
Yeah.
you changed. You got off the train.
And I
You're going
think,
down the track, and you're going down the track, and then all you say, you know what? I like that train over there better. So
well,
after
and I,
you quit that,
that's what made it easier for me.
well, yeah, I mean, you had another goal in your life because you'd been
Yeah.
touched by people like Dallas and people like that. How long after you quit that gig did you start applying yourself to what you do now?
Instantly.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I had made the decision to move to Utah out of LA, which I still miss LA every day. Just so much of my heart and growth happened there um, that it'll always be a very special place for me. But I made the decision to move to Utah. I had an offer to do some studio work here, which I said, okay, that's cool. Want
Yeah.
to be doing that, want to be creative and
Yeah.
all that. But I had an offer to also work in treatment, just as a tech, just kind of getting my feet wet, see if I dug it. Um, and both of those opportunities were enough for me to make the jump. And I was dating a girl here, so it's kind of like the universe just went, dude, you're going to Salt Lake. And she's now my wife, and we now have 2 kids and the whole thing. Um, but the recording thing totally didn't happen. None of it.
No.
Like we did one session and then nothing.
Yeah.
That was it. So my illustrious studio career that was promised to me, right? But I was like, okay, I believe in this very, very much. The universe provides.
Yeah.
And so here's how it happened. I start working at Cirque Lodge treatment center there, feeling good about what I'm doing.
Did you have a degree at that point?
No,
Okay.
no, because after I flunked out of college, I never got
Yeah.
it.
Right.
But I went back here at a community college and then transferred to the University of Utah.
Okay.
And then finished that and then was all set to go to grad school here. But again, the universe provides. I wondered, can I get into Carolina? They're the top 5 social work school in the country.
Hmm.
Would what I've done since flunking out speak to them enough to give me a shot at it?
Sure.
And the universe said, hey, kid, why don't you come make it right?
Hmm.
And what a moment that was, man.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, I mean, it gives me chills to even think about it. To have that opportunity to go back and not fix or correct, but to just re-experience with a different heart space about it all.
There's a
And to
different
learn.
guy though. You were a
Totally,
different person.
totally. And to learn from the best that were there was just, oh, it was one of the best years of my life. And so I came here and I worked and I'm at a meeting and I get introduced to a guy and he says, who have you been playing with? And all this. I said, well, I just moved from LA and I got off the road. Who are you on the road with? I said, Joe Bonamassa. And he goes, you're that dude. You're the guy from the Albert Hall video. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, one of the people that actually saw it, if this is 2011, nobody,
Yeah, nobody's seen it yet. Yeah.
He's not a household name that he is now.
No.
And he goes, I have a music school. I'd love for you to come and do a master class or teach. And that guy's name is Dave Wilbur, and he's just a wonderful friend of mine to this day. Dave plugged me into everything I've ever experienced musically at the time. So I became like one of the, kind of reliable subs for the bands that were here, doing corporate stuff, party stuff, and weddings and all that. And so I got to still play, and I met a really, honestly, a great class of players lives here too, but they're also high caliber human beings. And so I get to play music I love and respect with people I love and respect with people that love and respect me, which has always been my dream.
Yeah.
And I got that in LA too. And so I still have that outlet to this day because of my connection with Dave, just in a random thing. And we're going to
I sometimes wonder if that stuff is really random. I look back
I totally agree with that.
But, I think the thing is, if a lot of people I've talked to that have made it, so to speak, took risks, not risks like I'm going to drive 150 miles an hour in a car and see if I can go faster. It's a risk that they take. And they just feel that need to take it and they work at it. And then something happens and they're like, oh, look, this happened. And it's like, if you hadn't have done that, you wouldn't have got there. And it's kind of like, I always look at things like, I'm sitting here talking to you because I did this, this, and this. Okay.
Right.
And if I hadn't have done that, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I'd be still watching your video going, there's that dude playing drums there. And
which is what everybody else does. Who's the other guy? Yeah.
Well, and see, and you were going to tell me, and I know we don't want to spend a lot more time on this, but tell me about Carmine. You had told me on the phone, or you had stories about Carmine.
So when I was with Stevie Salas, the bass player in Rod Stewart's band, when Stevie was in Rod's band, was Carmine.
Oh, I did. Oh, that's right. He did play with him. He's played with a lot of people. Yeah.
Tons. And so I had heard about Carmine tons. And then he came to before he was in Joe's band, he came to one of our gigs and I met him there. And he was just this kind, gentle soul. Just a good dude. And I loved that. And, and then he came on in the band and he was a great hang. And it was just, as much as we connected on stage, we were more connected off stage.
Off stage. That's cool.
Because, those dudes. So there's my home group in LA is this group of guys, and they're all like, not all, but most of them are entertainment industry folks in recovery, and we all really connect as humans, not as, about what we do.
Right.
But that group and Joe and Rick and Carmine walked me through one of the hardest, if not the hardest time in my life, which was my divorce from my first wife. And they just showed up for me. They gave me an ear when they needed. I remember the car service coming to pick up me from my house with my first wife and going to the airport, and Rick and Carmine are in the car, and I'm leaving that house for the last time to go on the road.
Yeah.
And the tears are just on.
Yeah.
And I'm looking out the window and I turn and Carmine's in the front, Rick's in the back. And I just turn and I look at Rick, and Rick had been through divorce of his own. And I just looked at Rick and I went, it hurts today. And Rick in that thick Australian accent looks at me with all this love and he just goes, of course it does, mate. And they gave me so much of that kind of love on the bus, on the stage, on the hang, all of that. And Carmine really, he's such a funny guy and he's really quick. And he also, from his time on the road with magnificent acts, he knows tons of people.
Oh, I'm sure he does.
So wherever we were, like the posse would show up for Carmine, you know? And it was just like, I mean, you kind of, when you live with somebody, you kind of like get desensitized to the level of greatness that you're with.
Yeah.
They become human beings, which is a good thing.
That's what they're supposed to be first, but
Right.
people don't, yeah.
Right. You know, but I kind of, every now and then I would lose touch with like, dude, that's Carmine Rojas. And then he would just kind of flash the brilliance, not in an ego way, just because it's who he is.
He is, yeah.
You know, and that's not about like, oh, these people come to worship him. I'm talking about with his playing or with his heart.
Well, they like him as a person.
Totally.
To you, you've seen so much of that. But now your relationships are different. They're with individuals.
Right.
And I'm sure it's a different positive reinforcement for you, but it probably makes you feel better. I mean, it's great to have 10,000 people screaming out, you know, more. But helping somebody overcome a problem in their life and you see them become better, that has got to be a huge thing for you. And it probably happens to you quite a bit.
It does. I mean, you know, look, it comes with its heartaches and headaches.
Oh, I'm sure.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But yesterday on the way home, I got a voicemail from a guy that we discharged that wasn't, you know, doing what he needed to do here. And, you know, I'm not in the business of taking people's money just to keep them here.
Correct.
You know,
Yeah.
it's all kinds of messed up. But so we discharged him, and you know, I always have mixed feelings about that because I'm like, is this the thing that's going to light a fire in somebody, or is this just is we one more stop on the path to destruction?
Yeah.
And he's got 15 months sober.
Mm.
And thanks for all you gave to me was in there. And, you know, even though I kind of didn't want it at the time, and like, you know, some acknowledgement of his struggle with that, you know, because it is struggle. I think defiance is kind of like labeled or mislabeled sometimes. I mean, it's what they're in is struggle. It looks like defiance, and it may be defiance, but it's born out of struggle.
Yeah.
And that's where this kid was. And, you know, to get that from him, it was just like, even in the quote unquote misfires, it made a difference.
And that's really why you do what you do.
Yeah.
Thanks again, brother. You
Got
take
it.
care.
Be well,
Take
man.
care of
Thank
yourself.
you so much.
All right.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye. Well, that's it for this episode of The Trout Show. Thank you very much for listening. We appreciate it very, very much. And a very special thank you to Bogie Bowles for taking time out of his busy schedule to visit with me. And also a very big thank you to David Smith of Edward Jones for continually supporting his channel. If you want more information about The Trout Show, you know where you can find it at our website. Everything's there, podcast, YouTube, and other info that you might be interested in at thetroutshow.com, thetroutshow.com. And so the next time, people, you know what I always say. It's only rock and roll, but I do love it. See ya.